Old Humdrum boils the billy. We were pruning the apple tree, and I said to Grandad, "You know how you flew the train across Cook Strait and landed on the railway lines at Nelson? Has your grandmother been telling you I didn't do it?" "I just wondered who made all those steel railway lines." "A mate of mine, Old Humdrum." He spoke fast, in a high, squeaky voice, and had a trick he used to do at parties. "What sort of trick?" "He'd fill his mouth with coal, and chew it so fast it burst into flames, and smoke shot out of his ears. Put a billy of water on Old Humdrum's head, it'll boil, and you'd have tea in less than 5 minutes. Did his head get that hot? So hot his hair frizzled, and he went bald. He rubbed his scalp with Rawleigh's furniture polish, and nobody dared look out of their window on a sunny day if Old Humdrum was walking past. An intelligent man told him to try and put a handful of iron ore in his mouth with the coal, and chewing faster than usual, the coal burst into flame, melted the iron ore, and Old Humdrum spat out a long ribbon of steel. He bit it off as it came out, just the right length for railway lines. "Gee," Grandad smiled. "That's how all the railway lines in New Zealand were made, because somebody was intelligent enough to see how Old Humdrum could do something useful." "Who was that?" I asked. "Who was intelligent enough to think of how Mr. Humdrum could make the steel for the railway lines?" Grandad looked at his apple tree. That branch up there has to come off." "Who told Mr. Humdrum how to make the railway lines?" "Tell you what, hand me that pruning saw, and we'll cut it off now." Grandad climbed up into the apple tree. The only trouble with Old Humdrum was he couldn't think of things for himself. "Was it your idea to invent steel and make the railway lines?" I asked. Grandad was puffing now, from hanging on with one hand and sawing with the other. "I suppose it was me." "Thought so." "What do you mean you thought so?" "Well, when Granny told me she built the railway from Auckland to Wellington, she said you were bound to come up with some cock and bull story about how you invented the railway lines." The branch fell and nearly whacked me on the head. Grandad climbed down, sawed it into bits, and we put them in the barrow. Your grandmother never liked Old Humdrum's high squeaky voice, and he talked too fast. Once she even said she didn't even believe he existed. Why did she say that? If you don't believe people exist, they disappear. Remember Tinker Bell and Peter Pan? Did Mr. Humdrum disappear? All because your granny didn't believe in him. I believe in Mr. Humdrum. If you believe in him hard enough, maybe he'll come back again. Grandad sat me on top of the wood and gave me a ride to the shed. We'll let that dry and burn it next winter. Old Humdrum always enjoyed a good fire. I can still see him, smoke coming out of his ears, the billy boiling on top of his head, and the railway lines squirting out of his mouth. I'd like to see him too, I said. Believe in him hard enough, and you will. Come on, we'll ask Granny if she'll boil us a billy of water on top of her head and make us a cup of tea.